Okay, so yesterday we learned side, 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 side angle, side, and the whole point of that was shortcuts to being able to say that two triangles are congruent to each other, right? Without having to check all three sides with all three sides, and then all three angles with all three angles. That's a lot of things to check. We don't want to have to do that. So these are shortcuts. I'm trying to wrap up, like sum up what we did since you were here. These are shortcuts for being able to say, yep, that triangle is an exact copy of that triangle, meaning congruent. I don't want to have to list 6 angles, 6 sides. I don't want to have to do that. That's 12 things. I just want to be able to take the shortcut, which means I only have to focus on 3 things. Now they're very strategic, right? It's not just any 3 things. Yesterday it was 3 what? 3 sides. That's the easiest one. Would everyone agree? Did you find side, side, side to be the easiest? And then the other shortcut was what? Side angle, side. That's a little more challenging because it's very nitpicky. The angle has to be in between the 2 sides that are congruent. Well, I hope you don't mind the nitpickiness because we're right here again. Look at these shortcuts. We've got angle, side angle, and then angle, angle, side. You should notice that we do not have any inappropriate words, so please don't drop, the synonym for donkey, right? There are no jackasses in this room. There we go. That's what I'll say. So please don't create that because angle, side, side does not exist. And just think, like, this Holcombe doesn't allow cussing, so, that's not a shortcut, all right? Let's jump through these and then we'll practice. So, if we have angle, side, angle, clearly we have 2 angles. And this time we have the included side of one triangle congruent to 2 angles. And the included side of another triangle. If you have that scenario, then you have an angle, side, angle shortcut. All right, so we've written the definition. Now what we're going to do is go to the picture, and we're going to look at how we know when we're dealing with angle, side, angle. Here's where your highlighter comes in handy. Okay, again, highlighter comes in handy. We're going to list these. If you did the Delta math, you noticed the widget wanted you to list the congruent parts in the order of the shortcut. So we're going to list an angle, a side, and an angle as our congruent parts here. Take your highlighter and highlight the side that's congruent. Now there is something in this picture that I would love to take credit for this worksheet, but I can't. I found it and I thought, why would I sit down and create my own worksheet that this looks so nice and like sums everything up. However, I will say the author of the worksheet is implying what right here that's going to drive me nuts. Do you notice? There's something in this picture that's actually a mistake. Can you find it? It has to do with the marks. Yeah. All the angles, according to the picture, are congruent. And if you look at the picture, now I know we said we can't go on looks, but it's okay to say this one appears acute, this one appears obtuse. If you look at the picture, this appears acute, but this one appears to be opening up just slightly more than 90, or it could be right at 90. I don't know, but it's definitely not this, right? So I want to adjust your picture. If you'll take your pencil, we're just going to add an additional arc right here, and I'm going to do it in black so that it blends into the picture. We're going to add an additional arc here and here. We're going to come over here and do the same thing. And now our picture doesn't draw any confusion about those angles. Okay, So you've highlighted your congruent side, right? Here's why you highlight it. Because the angle, so the side has to be included. This means that the side has to be touching. See how the word side is in between the two A's, meaning it is in between the two congruent angles? Well, if you'll highlight the side in the picture, the two congruent angles that need to be there will be on the end. I didn't mean to do that. They will be on the ends of the congruent side. Do you notice that? And then like over here, it's on the end of the congruent sides. Notice I didn't circle C or Z because that would not be touching the yellow highlighted side. You see what I mean? It falls right into place. Like this is a congruent angle, this is a congruent side, and this is a congruent angle. So if you highlight the side, the congruent angles that have to be there will be on the end of the highlighted edge. All right, let's name them. Angle B is congruent to what over here? Angle Y. We're going to name a side. Side BA is congruent to what? YX. And then angle A is congruent to what? Angle X. So because I have an angle, a side, and an angle, and they're clustered together right there on the same edge of the triangle, then I can say I've met the shortcut for ASA. So I can say triangle ABC is congruent. Now if you call it ABC, you have to call this one XYZ. So that's the ASA shortcut. The next one is angle, angle, side. What is the difference between this and this? The location of the side has moved. It's no longer on the end, like it's no longer in between the congruent angles. Now it's on the edge, right? Addie, do you want to put that up? So here we go. We've got two angles. And this is going to feel weird to write it, but it's the non-included side. Non-included side. We've got two angles and the non-included side. If you will highlight the side that is marked congruent, it will help you to know which shortcut we're going towards. Because after we highlight, let's go ahead and highlight it. So the side that's congruent here and here, you should notice is only touching one of the angles that has a congruent mark. For instance, angle A is out here, angle X is out here. Do those angles touch my yellow highlighted side? Not at all. That's how you know that this is definitely not an ASA problem. Because look at the difference over here. The angles that are congruent are on the edge of the congruent side. Over here, they are not touching at all. So, if I was to read what I have in front of me, this is a congruent side, a congruent angle, a congruent angle. So I've got an angle, angle, side problem here. So let's list our congruent parts. The angle farthest away would be angle A, congruent to what? Angle X. Then we got angle B, congruent to angle Y. Then we have side BC congruent to angle, or side, YZ. You're going to have the same format as yesterday's Delta Math, with these. It's just now these shortcuts are possible. So once I verify that I've met my angle, angle, side shortcut, I can say that triangle ABC has to be congruent to triangle XYZ by the angle, angle, side shortcut. I want to work 2 practice problems, and then I want to turn you loose to work the sheet as practice before we move to the Delta Math. Remember what we said yesterday. Okay, so you weren't here. All right, locked in because I'm going to go quick. I can always help you again in Flex, but just to kind of give you some bearings. Do you notice these pictures, the triangles are not touching at all? Do you notice down here these are touching somehow? When you have triangles that are touching most of the time, there's info that needs to be marked that's not marked, and if you don't mark it before you answer the question, you're going to be lost. So let me show you the 2, stay with me, 2 most common scenarios, right? Do you notice how these 2 right here are shoved up together and their sides merged? So this is called a shared side. If I was to try and draw those triangles pulled apart, that particular side would end up having to be drawn twice, because now I have 2 separate triangles, right, instead of this one big picture. Because that side would get drawn twice, then it's fair to say it would be the same length, right? Like this side is, let's say it's 5. If this is 5 for the triangle on the left, wouldn't it be 5 for the triangle on the right? Because if you look at the picture, it's the same thing. So it's congruent to itself, which feels weird to say, but when you watch my video from yesterday, you'll see what I mean by that, because I draw a picture. So that's something not marked that you would need. The one other type of info that you may have is vertical angles. Do you notice right here, like I have 2 straight lines that kind of form an X? If you go back to like 3-4 weeks ago, do you remember vertical angles? Vaguely? A little bit? Well, maybe it'll come back to you. So we've got 2 lines crossing. Right here we've got vertical angles that are actually congruent and they're not marked. We've got to mark them or we're not going to be able to answer the question. So this is congruent to this right here. So every time triangles are touching, 9 times out of 10, we did have that one weird example yesterday. Let's see. That won't happen today. So every triangle touching today has something you have to mark. Okay. All right. Let's work with. Which was my one? Let's do number 1, 2, and 4. So number 1, take your highlighter, highlight the side that's congruent. Highlight the side that's congruent. Now look at your markings and ask yourself, this whole worksheet, remember, although it looks like an open-ended worksheet, we said it's actually multiple choice. Because it's either, in this case, ASA, AAS, or not enough info. So you have 3 choices on the whole thing. So number 1, look at the scenario that we're able to use here. And it all falls on the location of the side. Is it in between the 2 angles that are marked congruent, or is it on the edge of just one of them? What do we have here? This is an angle, angle, side problem, because the side that I highlighted, congruent, is only touching one of the congruent angles. So this is definitely like on the edge of the angles. So this would be, and then come over here and check it. You got angle, angle, side. So this is an angle, angle, side problem. Go to number 2. We've already marked what's congruent. Now look at the picture. Number 2, everybody's looking at the picture. What are you thinking? Talk to me. Yes. What letter in our shortcuts is not met at all in this picture? Angle. I don't have a single angle mark. I don't know any of the angles in there. Now you can argue all day long, oh, they look equal. Yeah, but remember we're in a courtroom and I need proof. Like, I don't know. They could be off by 1/10 of a degree. We don't know that they're equal. So there is not a single angle marking in this picture, which means we cannot use the 2 shortcuts we learned today. Let's jump to number 4. What would need to be marked in number 4 that I have not marked yet? Vertical angles. There's sneaky info right here. We got vertical angles. Abbreviate. Vertical angles. Now I can go highlight my side that's congruent. Highlighting my side that's congruent, what shortcut would I be allowed to use here? Yes. Do you notice when you highlighted the side that you touched both congruent angles here, and then over here you touched both congruent angles? So this is definitely an angle side angle problem. So now I've worked one of each. When you get to the back, 9 and 10 is saying, I want you to use ASA, so what additional info would you need? And then 11 and 12 is saying, I want you to use AAS, what additional info do you need? That's where you go put the question mark, where like you need something marked and it's not marked. There are multiple right answers for 11 and 12. So there's multiple right answers, okay? Here's what I would love to do to mix things up. I would love for you to get up and move somewhere else in the room. Wake up, like get up, move. You're welcome to go to the couch. I've got 3 floor seats. I've got 2 wobble stools. I have a giant wooden stool that's not comfortable at all. I have a standing desk. I would just love for you to get up and move, find a partner to work with, and then work through this, okay? You with me?